I'm Catherine Arndt, the Chief of the VLGA Connect studio. Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the VLGA, your councillor support network and the national broadcaster on all things local government.
Hi everyone, it's Local Leaders Time from VLGA Connect. Delighted to have you with us, and I'm particularly pleased to have our guest joining us today. It's Cowie from Nillumbik Shire with coffee in hand, as have I. We were just riffing on a few titles for this episode. Coffee Chat with Carl and Chris. It's all very alliterative. G'day, Carl.
How are you, Chris?
I'm very well. Great to see you. How are you?
Likewise. Just I was doing a message to the staff this morning, and I was just talking about the weather. I was up early, getting my steps up, and turned my music off. Springsteen is my go-to, but I just thought it might be nice to hear the wind just gently rustling the trees and the bird life near the wetlands where I live. And I just said to the staff on the message, the sunshine, it just gives you such a boost. I think we're all feeling really good right now. So yeah, great to be here.
So good to have you on the show, and thanks for painting such a lovely picture there of where you're at. And we've already learned something. Springsteen is your go-to. That's what this show is all about. Try to dig a little bit deeper into the leaders in the sector. If you don't mind my saying, Carl, you've been around the sector for a while. But you're not someone who's been out there selling yourself very much. So today I really want the audience to learn a bit about Carl Cowie that perhaps they haven't heard before. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think I typically go about work wherever I've worked in my career, putting my best foot forward for the organisation that's paying me and or the people I represent. And in this case, it's the community up at Nillumbik, which is... that background is very accurate to us, very significant part of Nillumbik. So it's Green Wedge. We're called the Green Wedge Shire. There are some urban parts, Eltham and Diamond Creek in the main. The rest is pretty much the background you've got there. So no, I'm not big into sales, to be honest.
I think it might have been a little bit of a hard sell to get Carl on the program. So I'm going to make the most of this opportunity. You talk about Nillumbik being the Green Wedge Shire. Before that, you were at Mornington Peninsula, which the entire shire is a UNESCO biosphere, we've learned this week. Some pretty unique places. How did you come to be leading those types of organisations? Because local government wasn't your original career, was it?
No, it wasn't. If I went all the way back, and we probably don't have time for that at my age, but oil and gas in Scotland, just about everyone that did a degree in Aberdeen either ended up at a major oil company or an oil service company, and that was my story too. But when I came out to Australia, I joined Arthur Andersen and spent 10 years or so in healthcare. That was really, really enjoyable. I've done a number of other roles in corporate and running private companies as well. And an opportunity came along. I got a call from someone who used to work for me in an HR capacity. And she was working for a search firm and said, got an interesting job for you. I think you'd like it. And she mentioned local government. And of course I went, thanks for thinking of me. Appreciate that, but you don't get those jobs unless you've been in them for a long time. But anyway, I went along and I had an interview with 12 people. That was a first. And I thought, when I did it, I thought, well, that was nice. That was interesting. We'll never see those people again.
And that was a group of councillors, I assume.
A group of councillors, yes, I should declare. And it came up at a time when two other really good job offers were for me. But I just thought, I like the sound of this. I think I can do some good there. And I didn't realise, to be honest, it was quite as prestigious a thing, I suppose, to get the senior position in a council straight off the bat. But, I really enjoyed it.
And what were your expectations of local government compared to the private sector that you'd spent so much time in? I imagine it was a big culture shift.
Yeah, it was, and I must admit, and I have admitted to people over the journey, I thought there would have been a lot to get people more into the swing of really servicing customers in the way that private sector does their shareholders, and make the profits that produce the dividends to keep shareholders happy, which, as you can see from Qantas, isn't the easiest job in the world.
Yeah.
I had no idea the breadth, to be honest, of local government, and I've really taken to that. I found at the Peninsula a lot of terrific people doing really great work, and so it's kind of infected me, I suppose. I'm still doing it. I'm still really enjoying it because it's got a real purpose to it, and you can make a real positive difference to people's lives, and I don't think you can do much better than that.
So, given there was obviously a learning curve coming into the sector for the first time, what was the approach that you took to both finding your way in local government but leading a council organisation?
Well, like any job, to be honest, for me, I put a huge amount of personal time and effort into it. Not reading the Local Government Act 1989, Chris, to be brutally honest, but learning from people, asking 1,000 questions, and 999 of them weren't why. That was always the first one, but really investing a lot of time in why we do things. When I was at St Vincent's Hospital, this is going back a fair bit, 1996, when I came to Australia, I was with the bean counters out at Victoria Parade, and I was heading off to meet the former Chief Medical Officer for Australia, Brendan Murphy, very, very nice chap. He was heading up the Department of Nephrology at the time, and I thought it would be handy to know what nephrology was. So I was looking at the dictionary for words I didn't know, and people were saying to me, "What are you doing in the dictionary?" I said, "I'm going to meet a nephrologist. It would be really handy if I knew what that was." So I found out it was the kidneys, and we went from there. And so you have to invest time into trying to, be real and, more valuable to people when you know what things are about. So that's what I did down at the Peninsula. And as I say, so many areas, I didn't realize that councils did so many things.
Yeah. I want to come back to some of that in just a moment. Before we leave your background behind, you talked about Aberdeen. I've read a few stories about Aberdeen, and it's always painted as a fairly bleak sort of place. And looking at your background there in Nillumbik, is that why you're out here? Why did you leave Scotland?
Oh well, that's a romance story. Lots of Australians leave when they're around 20, 21, and my wife did the same thing, and I met her in Aberdeen. She had, I think, like lots of Aussies too, on the big trip, they run out of money.
Right.
And when their parents say, "That's it, you're not getting any more cash," they find relatives. And so that took Jerry up to Scotland, and I met her at the second job I moved to after Marathon Oil bombed helicopters, which was a transport company. And so that was 96. We got here, got married, and that's been my story ever since.
Amazing. Well done. Thank you for sharing that. Let's get back to local government and how you think it's placed, I guess, with a business mindset. What is your take on the sustainability of the sector right now? Where are our big challenges?
Sustainability of the sector, really, financial sustainability, I think, is increasingly a concern for every council. We've had so much cost increases across Australia for various reasons. I'm not I'm not a political person in my job. I'm apolitical. So comments are never about good government, bad government. The reality is where we are. And construction is super expensive because big builds consume, by definition, a huge amount of resource, and it leaves everything else particularly tight. So for me, number one is financial, and how we're going to be able to continue to deliver services to the community to the level they, I think, rightly expect. Sustainability wise, as we move off gas to electricity, as we try and care better for the type of climate that you see in my background, is an increasing challenge as well. And to do it all in as cost-effective a way as possible is just really what's going to drive us into the future, and how we can, I think, share some resource between councils, because I don't think long-term it's sustainable to be 79 of us probably as councils all doing our own thing. That's just my personal take on it.
No, I was going to ask you a crystal ball question like that, and you mentioned shared services. It's been a conversation for a long time,
yeah,
and nobody really seems to have been able to make great success out of shared services across multiple councils on an ongoing basis. Why do you think that is?
I think it comes down to a fear of giving something up, and 20 something years later, it's no different in local government to what it was in healthcare sector when I was there. Even in St. Vincent's, we tried to set up a shared service centre for all the Catholic hospitals in East Melbourne. And we added Cabrini in back in the day. But basically, it turns on, you got one capable finance chief, say, who takes charge of all the finances. It's just a bigger organization. It doesn't need 5. That's the whole point, that you then get those types of savings. So it applies across everything that you could do, that we all do in the background and back office. So finance, payroll, some HR services, IT, lots of things there that could work, and have always driven me to try and keep those as small as possible. They have to be really good. It's like the 2-liter turbo, if I top gear for a second, instead of the old 6-liter V8, which is, yeah, it's got a great sound, but it's big, it's thirsty, it's expensive.
Yes.
And now you get things that produce a lot more power, similar speeds, much more cost effective. Keep the back office as tight as you can, so that the rest of the money's there for the community and the services. So they have to be able to give up a level of control, and that's easier said than done. And I'm sure it would be no different if I was CFO of Nillumbik Shire Council and we're looking to amalgamate with other areas to do certain shared services. So I think it will increasingly, there'll be a work in progress that needs to happen.
Now, you mentioned Top Gear. Is there any truth to the rumor? Can you dispel the rumor that you're joining the cast of a future series of Top Gear?
Sadly, yes, I can. I always want to wear that white outfit and pretend to be the Stig, but the reality is I don't have that talent, and no, I won't be joining, but I did.
So the reason that I bring that up is you were spotted on television in the last week or so behind the wheel of a very snazzy new electric vehicle, and this was part of an effort to get more councils aware of the opportunities available with the switch to electric vehicles. Are you a proponent of these new environmentally progressive technologies?
It's one of those questions that I try to not answer, because everyone who knows me well knows I'm a Formula One addict, and I have been longer than I've been listening to Springsteen, and that's 45 years now. Right. So yes, I am. Is where I'm going. Have I always been? Absolutely not. Because when Formula One went quiet with all the cares and harvesting of energy, you could actually have a conversation on Brocky's Hill, which is about turn 9 at Albert Park, with your friends as the cars went past. And it was just awful. That you like to hear them on the other side of the lake screaming down start-finish straight. So the sound's an issue. But beyond that, you kind of accept that you have to move in a particular way. The industry is rapidly taking us there anyway. Yeah, as a local government leader, I've really started to have a real close look at this as my next car, which I have to say maybe half a year ago even wasn't. We're doing it in the organization. We're swapping the fleet out because it's the right thing to do, and I think I'm moving in that direction as well. So one of my friends actually said, you have to get an electric vehicle now, Carl, don't you? I went, yes, I'm thinking that is the case. It's getting it into the garage, because when you've got 3 sons who are still at home with trail bikes and other things. I remember we used to be able to park our cars in the garage, but those days are long gone. So I don't want a 40-foot cord from the house to my electric vehicle.
I think that's a good use case for clearing the garage, Carl. But seriously, on climate change, you've been to, I think, Sweden to inform yourself around some of the latest climate change thinking.
Yeah, I have. It feels like yesterday, but it was 2017 when I was there, and through a Southeast Melbourne group, we actually had a Swedish executive officer who was part of the agenda group, and she set up a tour for me, which was really terrific. So I was in Stockholm, and I think we're far enough away from lunch to be able to say where I went. One of the places was Scandinavian Biogas, which basically tapped into the sewer system of Stockholm, produced gas from the sewer waste, piped the biogas to the Keolis bus depot, which was fully all vehicles ran on the biogas. And that was to me a perfect loop of a resource for energy, and that bus service ran 600,000 passengers per day around Stockholm on sewer waste. Everything at the bus facility the water was recycled, the ponds for cleaning the vehicles. I just thought, this is so impressive. Everywhere you kind of go in Scandinavia, there's how do we not waste something?
Yeah. And
I think, I love Australia, so I don't like to bag it at all, but we're a long way behind. We really are. We need to catch up fast.
We're going to have to put a disclaimer on this episode. Don't watch at mealtime now. But seriously, what do you do with that sort of thinking and that information? As you say, we're a long way behind. What can local government be doing more of, do you think, to progress our climate change response?
What we're doing across the councils in the north, we have 7 councils that comprise Northern Councils Alliance. We do a lot of work together to try and advance climate change. There's a Greening of the North project, obviously, which is a number of the big councils like Hume, for example, and parts of Whittlesea and the more inner city. They're more bereft of trees than we are, and we all know that the heat effect reduction of forests. So that's a significant thing that we can do. But I think it is just the small incremental things. We've gone single plastic, no plastic at the organization where we possibly can, everywhere, educating the community, helping the community do the same thing, setting the targets that we've set at Nillumbik for 2030, net zero, and net zero in the community by 2035. there's nothing like a CEO KPI to keep you honest in the pursuit of delivering what you said you would deliver. So I think that, and just a regular agenda item at our meetings on what have we done since last we met to help achieve the goals.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing anyway.
Carl, I might just fire a few quick questions at you for some quick answers before we wrap up. Who comes to mind as your most influential mentor or business role model?
That's a good one. He's got a number of trucks on the road. I got to know him when I was at the Peninsula. His name's Lindsay Fox. He started at 17 with his own truck, and 6,500 trucks later, and
wow,
a few $1 billion in the bank. He's been a brilliant Australian, and I think I learned a lot from him in the time I spent with him, particularly when I worked at the Peninsula. So he's a kind of number one, and he's ever present, isn't he? You can't go on the road, you can't hardly go to a building that hasn't got something that he's given back to this great state of Victoria.
Next flag for Hawthorn?
2025, contesting strongly. I think 26, though, start of another three-peat era.
And I know you've
alienated your entire.
No, it's all right. I know you've recently had a contract renewal, but 5-10 years from now, where do you see yourself? Still in local government?
I don't know is the short answer. I think that might be the case. 10 years from now will probably see me retiring to what I'm not sure. So I do enjoy the work, I must say. So could well be. It has been really enjoyable, but yeah, I'm at that sort of time where I'm thinking, what will I do next? After the next 4-year contract, of course.
Of course. I'm sure you'll be very successful at it, whatever it is that comes next, Carl. And thank you so much for spending time with us on the program today. It's been great to chat with you.
Thank you, Chris. I really enjoyed it. So appreciate the time. And for someone who wasn't in sales, I've probably moved slightly into sales now. But thank you for your time as well.
Carl Cowie, the CEO of Nillumbik Shire Council, our guest on Local Leaders today from VLGA Connect.